The entire village of Willow Creek thought Elara had lost her mind. When she, the most beautiful girl in the village, announced her engagement to Liam, the reaction was immediate: scorn. Liam was the man who dragged his useless legs in the dust, the man who lived in the shadows, the man everyone called the broken. They said Elara was trading her beauty for ruin, that she was desperate, or perhaps that her mind had snapped under the weight of her poverty. She must be cursed, the market women whispered, to tie herself to that useless man. But what Willow Creek didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that the man they had dismissed was guarding a secret. A secret so profound it wouldn't just change Elara's life, it would change the entire village forever. Before we continue, take a deep breath, because this story is a powerful reminder that the very person society discards today might hold the keys to your salvation tomorrow. Elara's life had been a tapestry of struggles. Her father passed away when she was barely a teenager, leaving her and her ailing mother with nothing but a small, crumbling hut and a mountain of debts. They survived on the meager earnings from their roasted plantains stand by the roadside. When sales were poor, they begged, borrowing from neighbors who would later mock them for it. "The poor are always begging," they'd say loud enough for her to hear. "They'll die as they lived, with nothing." At 24, Elara's beauty was known throughout the region, as was her quiet humility. But humility couldn't pay for her mother's medicine, and beauty couldn't stop the leaks in their roof. She was trapped. Her mother, growing weaker by the day, prayed for deliverance. That deliverance arrived one hot afternoon, but it didn't look like a miracle. It looked like Liam. He was the quiet man who lived in the shadow of the old, crumbling ruins. He was rarely seen, and when he was, children would point and adults would look away. That day, Elara was returning from the stream when she saw him. He was fighting to move a heavy sack of maize from a broken wheelbarrow, his body trembling with the effort. He slipped and the bag began to topple. Without a second thought, Elara dropped her water pot and rushed to help, catching the other side of the sack. "Wait," she said, her voice gentle. "You'll hurt yourself. Let me help you." Liam looked up, his eyes wide with shock. People don't help me," he whispered, his voice raspy. Elara gave him a sad smile. "Then they are the ones who are blind." From that day something changed. Liam began to visit her plantain stand every evening. He never said much, but he would sit quietly watching her. And every time he would pay double what the plantains were worth, pressing the extra coins into her mother's hand. Elara started to notice things others didn't: the intelligence in his quiet eyes, the dignity in his silence, and the profound gratitude he showed for the smallest courtesy. But gratitude couldn't cure her mother. When the landlord arrived, giving them 1 week to pay 6 months of back rent or be thrown onto the street, Elara's world collapsed. That night, kneeling by her mother's mat, she wept. "I'll do anything, Mama," she choked out. "Anything to save you. Even if it means marrying a man I do not love." The very next day the village was rocked by news. Liam, the broken Liam, had gone to Elara's mother with a proposition. He wanted to marry Elara. In exchange he would pay every debt they owed, move them into his home, and provide for her mother's medical care for the rest of her life. The village exploded with laughter. Marry Liam? Has she finally gone mad? Her best friend, Serafina, confronted her by the stream. "Elara, you can't be serious. You're throwing your life away. You deserve a rich farmer, a chief. Not him. This is pity, not a marriage." Elara's eyes, hollowed by sleepless nights, met hers. "Pity isn't a currency the pharmacist accepts, Serafina. My mother is dying. My dreams can wait." The wedding day was a spectacle of shame. The tiny chapel was packed, not with well-wishers, but with spectators who had come to see the village beauty throw her life away. Elara, in a simple, borrowed dress, looked pale but resolute. Liam sat in his wheelchair by the altar, wearing a plain, clean suit. As Elara walked down the aisle, the whispers were like snakes in the grass. She sold herself. What a waste. Imagine their future. A beggar and a beauty. Elara ignored them all. She stood before Liam, and when their eyes met, she saw something that stunned her. Not shame, not weakness, but a profound, unshakable strength. When the priest asked if she would take him, she swallowed her pride and the village's scorn. "I do." Liam's hand found hers. "Those 2 words are my anchor," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I know this isn't a fairy tale, but I promise you, Elara, you will never regret this day." That night, as they entered his small cottage, Elara was surprised. It didn't look like the home of a destitute man. It was impeccable. The floors were polished, the furniture was sturdy and new, and the air smelled of lemon and herbs. As she lay down on the comfortable bed, 1,000 questions raced through her mind. Who was this man she had just married? Outside, the villagers continued their gossip, convinced they had just witnessed the end of Ilara's life. But Destiny, watching from the shadows, knew the truth. What the village saw as Ilara's tragic end was, in fact, her magnificent beginning. The morning after her wedding, Ilara awoke to an unfamiliar feeling: peace. The room was bathed in soft light, and the scent of jasmine drifted through the open window. Liam was already awake, sitting by the window in his wheelchair, reading a thick book, a pair of glasses resting on his nose. He looked less like a beggar and more like a scholar. "Good morning," she offered, her voice shy. He looked up and his smile was warm. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, thank you." Should I make some tea?" He shook his head, gesturing to a tray on the table. "I already have." "Help yourself." Ilara paused. "You made it?" He turned a page in his book. "My legs are weak, Ilara," he said, not looking up. "But my mind and my hands are strong." His quiet confidence was unnerving. There was no trace of the broken, useless man she thought she knew. She looked around the room again, truly seeing it this time. The furnishings weren't just new, they were tasteful. The curtains were made of heavy velvet, and the bed frame was solid oak. For a man who struggles, she thought, he has very expensive taste. Over breakfast, Liam was quiet, but his questions were sharp. He asked about her mother's illness, her own abandoned dreams of becoming a teacher, what her favorite color was. He listened with an intensity that made her feel, for the first time, truly seen. When she finished, he looked at her. "The world has been unkind to you, Ilara. I intend to change that." She gave a small, nervous laugh. "How can you change anything? You're—" She stopped, not wanting to be cruel. He merely smiled, a knowing, secret smile, and returned to his book. Later that day, Ilara went to the village well. The whispers started the moment she was in sight. "There she is. The broken man's wife. She must be dying of shame." Her friend Serafina was there, her arms crossed. "So," Serafina said, her voice dripping with pity, "how is life with him? Does he make you beg for him now?" Ilara frowned. "He's different than you think, Serafina. He's kind." "Kind?" Serafina scoffed. "Kindness doesn't put food on the table. You've buried yourself alive, Ilara." But Ilara wasn't so sure. Her heart was telling her something the village couldn't see. That night, while tidying the small sitting room, she found a polished teak box under Liam's desk. Her curiosity got the better of her. She opened it. Inside there wasn't much: a heavy gold signet ring, a few legal-looking documents, and a photograph. Her breath caught. It was a picture of a younger, standing Liam, dressed in a sharp suit, shaking hands with another man in front of a massive glass building. A sign on the building read, "Alistair Holdings." She dropped the photo as if it were hot. Alistair Holdings? The biggest company in the country? It couldn't be. This was Liam, the man she thought she knew. When he wheeled himself into the room, he saw the open box and the look of terror on her face. He wasn't angry. He just looked at her gently. "What did you find?" "Nothing," she stammered, shoving the box back. "I was just dusting." He studied her for a long, quiet moment. "Curiosity is a sign of intelligence, Ilara," he said softly. "Don't ever lose it." Before she could ask what he meant, he wheeled himself into the kitchen, humming a tune she didn't recognize. He sounded happy. The weeks passed. A strange routine developed. Liam would spend his mornings reading newspapers and writing long, detailed letters. And sometimes, men in dark suits driving polished vehicles would arrive at the cottage. They would speak to Liam in hushed, urgent tones in the garden, calling him Sir. Ilara would watch from the window, her confusion growing. Who were these men? Why were they taking orders from a beggar? Then one evening as the sun set, Liam turned to her. "Ilara," he said, his voice serious. "I have business in the city tomorrow. I want you to accompany me." "The city?" she whispered. I've never been." "Then it's time you saw it." The next morning, a gleaming black sedan, long and luxurious, pulled up to their small cottage. The driver, dressed in a black suit, got out and opened the door. The entire village stopped to stare. Their jaws dropped as Liam, helped by the driver, moved from his chair into the back of the car. Then Ilara, in her simple market dress, got in beside him. Mrs. Gable, the village's main gossip, nearly fainted. Is that Liam? And Ilara? In that car?" As the car pulled away, leaving the stunned villagers in a cloud of dust, Ilara finally turned to her husband. "Liam, what is all this? Who are you?" He looked ahead at the road, his profile strong against the morning light. "I am the man they called useless," he said. But they were wrong. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. She knew with absolute certainty that her life was about to change. The man she had married out of pity was not who he seemed. He wasn't just hiding a secret, he was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it. The city was a roaring, glittering monster of glass and steel. Ilara had never seen buildings that tall, so many people, or cars that shined so bright. She felt small, like a village mouse in a king's palace. Liam was silent beside her, his face calm as if he belonged here. The car didn't just stop anywhere. It pulled up to the tallest, most magnificent building of all. A skyscraper that seemed to pierce the clouds. In massive, polished letters above the door, she read the name, Alistair Holdings. She turned to Liam, her mind unable to connect the two realities. "Liam, this is the building from the photograph." "Yes," he said simply. "This is where we are going." A uniformed doorman rushed to open the car, bowing deeply. "Welcome back, Mr. Alistair. We've been expecting you." "Mr. Alistair." Ilara's blood ran cold. She followed him as he wheeled himself through the opulent marble lobby. Every person they passed, men and women in sharp, expensive suits, stopped, nodded, and greeted him with reverence. "Good morning, Mr. Alistair." "Sir, the board is waiting." Ilara felt faint. She grabbed his wheelchair to steady herself. "Liam, they're calling you Mr. Alistair." He stopped in the middle of the lobby and turned to face her. His eyes were no longer just kind, they were powerful. "My name is Liam Alistair," he said, his voice echoing in the grand space. "This is my company. But, the village, your legs, the begging?" He guided her toward a private elevator. "4 years ago I was in a car crash. It took the use of my legs. The woman I was engaged to marry left me a week later, calling me half a man. My own business partners tried to cheat me out of my company, thinking I was weak." He looked at her, his gaze intense. "I was surrounded by people who loved my money and my power, but not me. So I left. I went to your village, the last place anyone would look for me. I wanted to see if anyone could see a man and not just a broken one." Ilara's hand flew to her mouth. The kindness, the new furniture, the men in suits, it all made a terrible, wonderful sense. "Why?" she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because wealth is a mask, Ilara," he said gently. "I needed to find someone who would see my face beneath it. Someone who would offer me help when I had nothing to give in return. I watched you for months. And then that day you helped me with the maze. I knew." He smiled. "I wasn't searching for a wife, Ilara. I was searching for a genuinely good person. And I did. I found you." Later he took her to his office. It was larger than her entire village. The walls were glass, overlooking the entire city. She saw another framed image on his desk, not a photo but an architect's drawing of a large, modern building. The sign read, "The Alistair Foundation for Healing." "What is this?" she asked. "It's a hospital," he said. "A research center and rehabilitation home for people with spinal injuries. For those the world forgets. I know what it's like to be invisible, Ilara. I'm going to make sure others have the hope I almost lost." Tears streamed down Ilara's face. This was the man they called useless. This was the man she had pitied. "Liam," she whispered, "I feel so foolish." He took her hand. "No. You didn't see the CEO. You saw a man struggling and you were kind. You didn't misjudge me, Ilara. You were the only one who judged me correctly. You saw my heart." That night, back in the small cottage in the village, the silence was different. It was full. As she helped him prepare for bed, her heart ached with a new, powerful emotion. It wasn't pity. It was pride. As she tucked the blanket around him, he caught her hand. "Ilara," he said, his voice low. "You stood by me when the whole world laughed. That's a strength money can't buy." She smiled, her eyes shining. "Maybe now I understand you, Liam Alistair." He nodded, a serious look on his face. "Good. Because tomorrow we are going back into the village. But this time we're not hiding." "What do you mean?" "It's time," he said, his eyes hardening just a little. "It's time they learned who they were mocking." Ilara lay awake for hours, her heart thrumming with a mix of dread and vindication. Tomorrow the whispers would finally stop. The village thought she had married a beggar. They were about to find out she had married a prince in hiding. The next morning, the sun seemed to hesitate as if it too knew the village of Willow Creek was about to be shaken to its core. A large, black, imposing SUV, a Range Rover, rumbled down the dusty path, a vehicle more luxurious than anything the villagers had ever seen. Elara sat beside Liam in the plush leather interior, her hands clasped tightly. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "They will be so shocked." "Good," Liam said, his voice calm. "Shock is the first step to understanding. They judged me by my legs, Elara. Today they learned that a man's worth isn't in his ability to stand, but in what he stands for." As they drove into the central market, everything stopped. The marketplace, usually bustling with noise, fell utterly silent. Women paused with baskets on their heads. Men stopped their bicycles. Children froze. Mrs. Gable, the village's chief gossip, was in the middle of telling a story when she saw the vehicle. Her jaw dropped, and the clay pot she was holding slipped from her fingers and shattered at her feet. Who is that?" someone whispered. "Is that the tax collector?" The car rolled to a stop right in front of the elder's hut. A driver in a crisp uniform got out, walked to the passenger side, and deployed a sleek, mechanical ramp from the car. Then Liam emerged. He wasn't in his usual plain clothes. He was in a tailored suit of the finest material, his watch catching the morning sun. He wheeled himself out with an air of absolute authority. Elara stepped out after him, her head held high. The village stared. This was Liam, but it was not Liam. Elder Theron hurried over, wringing his hands, his face a mask of confusion. "Liam? My boy, is this? But how? We thought you were a beggar?" Liam finished for him, his voice clear and carrying across the silent square. "A broken man? Useless." The crowd flinched. "Yes, I am a man who cannot walk," Liam continued, his voice rising. "And you all mocked me for it. And you mocked her," he said, gesturing to Elara, "for showing me kindness. You called her a fool. You said she married me for pity." He looked around, his gaze landing on Mrs. Gable, who looked like she might faint. "You all laughed. But where were you when her mother was sick? Where were you when she was starving? Her foolishness was compassion. Her pity was courage. The silence was thick with shame. You all know the new school building that was just completed?" Liam asked. The village nodded, confused. "My company built that school." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "My name," he announced, "is Liam Alastair. I am the CEO of Alastair Holdings. And this woman, this foolish woman you ridiculed, is my wife. And she is the only reason any of you will see another drop of my company's generosity." Shame flushed their faces. People who had laughed the loudest now stared at the dust, unable to meet his eyes. Elder Theron fell to his knees. "Sir, Mr. Alastair, we beg your pardon. We are ignorant. We did not know." "No," Liam said, his voice softening. "You did not know. So let this be your lesson. Judge no one. The man you spite today may hold the power to save you tomorrow." Mrs. Gable stumbled forward, tears in her eyes. "Elara, my child, can you forgive this old woman? We were blind." Elara looked at the woman who had caused her so much pain, and she felt only peace. "There is nothing to forgive, Mama Gable," she said, her voice clear. "Today we all learned something." As they got back into the car, the entire village bowed. They didn't just see a rich man, they saw a king. Driving away, Elara looked at her husband. "They were so quiet," she marveled. Liam chuckled. "Silence is the sound of a lesson being learned. I didn't do that for revenge, Elara. I did it for you. You deserve their respect." She leaned her head on his shoulder as the car sped toward their new life. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not for the money, but for seeing me when I was invisible." He took her hand. "And thank you, my love, for being the only one who saw me too." Weeks later, life was unrecognizable. They lived in a beautiful estate on a hill overlooking the city. Elara's mother was in the finest hospital, recovering well, and Elara herself was preparing to enroll in the university to get the teaching degree she had always dreamed of. One evening they sat on their balcony watching the sunset paint the sky. "It still feels unreal, Liam," Elara said softly. "I sometimes think I'll wake up and be back at the plant and stand." Liam turned his wheelchair to face her, taking her hands. "This is real, Elara. It became real the moment you chose kindness. You looked past the broken body and saw the man. You saved me, Elara. Not the other way around." A maid brought out the evening newspaper. On the front page was a picture of them from their visit to the village. The headline read, "C.O. Liam Alastair's Humble Origins, a Story of Love and Misjudgment." Elara laughed. "The whole world knows our story now." "Good," Liam said, pulling her closer. "Let them learn what I learned. That true wealth isn't in a bank account. It's in finding a heart that will stay with you when you have nothing else to offer. She had married the man the world rejected, and in doing so had gained the entire world. He had lost the use of his legs, but in finding her, he had finally learned how to fly. This story teaches us a timeless lesson. Never, ever look down on someone's current situation. The rags they wear today may be hiding the robes of a king. The person you ridicule, the one society calls useless, may be the very person destiny has sent to be your miracle. True love is not blind, it simply sees what others cannot. It looks past the scars, the wheelchair, and the poverty, and it sees the heart. If this story moved you and reminded you of the power of kindness, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful, life-changing stories that prove the kindest hearts always win in the end.